The Bucs beat the 49ers on my birthday. But was it a gift, or did the team just hurt themselves in the long run by ensuring a lower draft pick? We'll figure out if we should root for wins or for a better draft right now. Welcome back to the Play Reaction. I'm Corey Draper, and this is the place to catch up on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win or lose. Remember to subscribe and share this video because I'm about to address a topic that is a yearly debate among Bucs fans. When the Bucs are out of the playoffs, should we still root for a win? Or do we want them to lose so they can have a better draft pick? That debate is only getting more heated because Tampa Bay just got their first win in a month, defeating the San Francisco 49ers, who currently hold the #1 draft pick as I record this video. I really want to recap this game because by God it was a good one. But for the sake of time and because you all already know what happened in the game, I'll skip the recap and just go straight into what was awesome about this game. The Buccaneers had their very first complete, mistake-free football game this season on Sunday. It wasn't flashy or high-flying, but the offense did their job at the same time the defense did their job, at the same time special teams did their job. It's such a shame that it took them 11 games to do that, and it took them playing one of the worst teams in the NFL. But hey, it just felt good to finally see it. The offense was efficient and effective. Jameis didn't throw any picks and no one fumbled. Honestly, for any other team, it would have been an uneventful and kinda boring game. But after what we've been through over the last 2 months of shooting ourselves in the foot, it was so satisfying to see this team execute properly. Mike Evans continued his run of 1,000-yard seasons by eclipsing that mark in this game. He now has 5 straight years of going over 1K. The only other receivers in NFL history to accomplish that are AJ Green and Randy Moss. That's it. So congrats to Mike because he is now one of the elite and we're happy to have him in Tampa. And the good Jameis Winston showed up on Sunday too. He had his first game this year with 0 turnovers and finally played at the level we saw him play at the end of last season. Since coming into the Giants game, Jameis has 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, a completion percentage of 75%, and a 121.8 passer rating. Maybe, just maybe, his benching was just what he needed. Maybe he's righted the ship. Maybe. And how about that defense? The pass rush was everything we've wanted it to be. The D-line had 4 sacks. That includes first-round pick Vita Vea, who had his best game of the year by far. And speaking of sacks, the streak is finally over. Jason Pierre-Paul now has 10.5 sacks, which makes him Tampa's first double-digit sacker since Simeon Rice in 2005. That's a 13-year drought, guys, that just ended. That JPP trade was the best move of the offseason. But that's not the only abysmal streak that ended on Sunday. Ryan Smith's pick in the end zone marked the first takeaway the Bucs defense has had since week 3 against the Steelers. It was an impossible streak that has really hurt this team. Hopefully now the floodgates are open and we'll see more takeaways consistently. Oh, but that's not all. Our new kicking savior, Cairo Santos, not only made all of his kicks, but made them with ease. None of them were even close to missing. Isn't it fun when this team plays to their talent level? Unfortunately, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. Here's what was not so awesome about this game. Before I go on, I just want to point out that I'm thankful that for once this section is short. But alas, there were some negatives about this game. For one, Deshaun Jackson had another poor outing. It's crazy to me because all day Jameis was pretty accurate to every pass catcher until he targeted Djax. It seemed like every time he threw to him, it was off target. Now, is it because of chemistry or because Deshaun's effort has waned? We all know that Djax asked for a trade earlier in the year, so he's clearly frustrated with his team. It also doesn't help his cause that he's posted cryptic comments on social media that show he's still unhappy. So maybe Deshaun hasn't exactly been hitting his marks. Maybe he hasn't been running full speed and that's why Jameis can't hit him on a deep ball, but he can hit Mike Evans. Or maybe it's just a chemistry thing. Honestly, I have no idea, but I think we can all share in Jackson's frustration with how this season has panned out for him. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but this offensive line is still a big problem. Jameis was running for his life quite a bit. Thankfully, he's been dead accurate while on the run, so it didn't hurt as much this game. This O-line has been a consistent disappointment across the board, but it's still baffling that Caleb Benenoch is still starting. Backup Evan Smith is out for the year on IR, but third-round pick Alex Kappa hasn't even been active until this past Sunday. How bad does Kappa have to be if he can't beat out a turnstile at right guard? And finally, some of you may put this as a negative, the Bucs won. I've seen a ton of fans on social media actually upset that the Bucs won because it hurts their draft position. Maybe you were one of those people. Which brings up a question Bucs fans always seem to debate in November. Should we root for the Bucs to win or tank for the draft? I, for one, have never been able to root for the Bucs to lose. Yeah, there's been a guy I've wanted in the draft, and I may have secretly been okay about the Bucs losing so we could get that guy. A great example is when the Bucs secured the #1 overall pick in the 2014 season. Tampa was beating New Orleans in the very last game of the season that year. They held the tiebreaker over the Tennessee Titans, who also had only 2 wins. If the Bucs lost, the #1 pick was guaranteed. So, mysteriously, most of the starters were benched for the second half against the Saints, and lo and behold, the Bucs blew a 20-7 lead in the fourth quarter and lost. The result was that first pick, and the Bucs got their guy, Jameis Winston. That's an example of how tanking actually worked well. Regardless of how Jameis ends up in his career, the Bucs got the guy they wanted. But what about when the #1 pick is out of reach? What if you're only just one of the bottom teams, but not the worst? Should you apply the same philosophy? Most people who believe they should love to point out the guys we've missed out on over the years, thanks to not losing enough. For instance, this year's draft, the Bucs had both Quentin Nelson and Saquon Barkley at the top of their draft board, but neither of those guys fell to them. Yet had they could have made a huge and immediate impact on this team. There's also plenty of drafts we could look at where players who were taken before the Bucs could have changed the trajectory of the franchise. The first one that comes to my mind is in 2007, when the Bucs chose the late Gaines Adams, when just 2 picks before them, the Detroit Lions drafted Calvin Johnson. Adams was a bust, and Megatron was an elite wide receiver for 10 years. However, there's one big problem with this strategy of tanking. You have to get the pick right. The draft is honestly a crapshoot, and there's plenty of players taken in the top 10 who end up being busts. There's also plenty of players who are elite that are drafted later in the first round. How does that compare to players who were drafted earlier? It's a short sample size, but in pursuit of the answer to that question, I looked at all of the Buccaneers drafts in the Jason Light era and took note of the players that the Bucs could have drafted, based on team need, who ended up being studs. So here's what I found. In 2014, Tampa Bay drafted Mike Evans at pick #7. A great pick and one I think we all love. Here's who was taken before him that the Bucs could have drafted. Jadeveon Clowney and Khalil Mack. Okay, I would have loved to have had those guys for our pass rush, especially last year. But now here's who was drafted after Evans in the first round. Anthony Barr, Taylor Lewan, Aaron Donald, Ryan Shazier, Zach Martin, HaHa Clinton Dix, and DeMarcus Lawrence. Wow, there's a lot of really good defensive players in that list who would have been great to have this year. In 2016, the year after we drafted Jameis, the Bucs drafted at #11 after trading down 2 spots and took Vernon Hargreaves. Here are some players who were taken before him: Joey Bosa, Zeke Elliott, Jalen Ramsey, and Leonard Floyd. Again, all guys we would gladly have now. But here's who was drafted after VH3. Sheldon Rankins, Keanu Neal, and Miles Jack. Those are also some guys that would have made a big impact on this team this season. Then there's 2017. The Bucs took O.J. Howard at 19 after going 9-7 and just missing the playoffs. Another good pick. The players taken before O.J. that would have also been good for us: Myles Garrett, Leonard Fournette, Christian McCaffrey, and Marshawn Lattimore. The players that were available to them: Dalvin Cook, Jabril Peppers, Takk McKinley, TJ Watt, and Pro Bowler Buda Baker. So what does this all mean? To me, it says that, yes, the Bucs could miss out on elite players at the top of the draft if they win. But it also says that there's plenty of players later in the draft who can become Pro Bowlers or at the very least contribute to this team immediately. So for me, it doesn't matter where we draft, there will be players out there. It's a matter of your GM's ability to see elite talent no matter if he's picking at #1, #10, or #32. Do you think the Patriots hurt themselves by consistently drafting in the back of the first round? Shoot, they often trade out of the first round. Do you think the Packers, Seahawks, or the Steelers are hurt because they never pick in the top 10? Now consider teams like the Browns, or the Raiders, or the entire AFC South, or even the Bucs themselves. They are always picking in the top of the draft. How's that worked out for them? The difference between those teams and the ones who always win is not a matter of getting as high as they can in the draft. It's a matter of talent evaluation and coaching. There will always be elite talent available in the first round no matter where you pick. That's why I will always root for this team to win. That, and because it's fun to win, guys. Enjoy it because it doesn't happen often. Don't worry about the crapshoot that is the NFL draft. Even if we get a higher draft pick, that doesn't mean the staff won't screw it up somehow. We should know this by now. I think it's time we stop acting like a last place fan base. Let's expect to win. You want a culture change in the locker room? Unfortunately, we can't control that. What we can control is a culture change in our fan base. So let's stop rooting for our own team to lose, guys. That strategy hasn't worked for 10 years. Maybe we should try something different. Maybe we should actually support this team through the good times and the bad. Cause if we don't, what is even the point? Thanks for joining, guys, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Remember to subscribe and share this video around with your friends. And support the sponsors I have listed in the description below. It really helps me grow this channel. Now, let's root for a win against Cam Newton and the Panthers. Go Bucs!